and welcome to another episode of Hitchhiker-Stories from a Road, where tonight's guest, Britney Tucci, where we just found out literally lives about up the road from me, is coming on to tell us her stories from the road. Britney was recommended from a viewer of the show who said that her stories and her passion for the band are something that the world needs to hear. So that's why Britney's on the show tonight to talk to us about all things Britney, Pearl Jam, and music on the road. Britney, thank you so much for coming on and being a part of the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem. Well, from one, I guess I'm a Virginian now that I've been here 16 years, to another this is interesting. It is, because it's, like I had said before, I'm like, oh, we talked about where we're from. I'm like, yeah, and we mentioned our cities, and we're like, it was interesting because we're like, wait a minute, we both know where both of those things are. We both work in those areas. It's a weird thing, but let's get to the meat and potatoes of this. Music is what's bringing us all together, right? Pearl Jam is the music we love. It built the community around us to get everywhere to where we are now, right? Like, that's why we follow. That's where our friends are, our fellow friends. The most interesting thing, or the question I like to ask people, is like how they fell in love with music. Like, where did it start from? What was that first memory of music and why you fell in love with it? When you think of music and how you fell in love with it, what's the first memory that comes to your mind?
The first memory would be driving with my dad and CCR. I think a lot of people's dads listen to CCR for some reason. So my dad always had like the same three tapes: Billy Joel's Greatest Hits, Creedence Clearwater Revival, and Oldie Station. So I think it started there with just road trip sing-alongs. And then I had an older brother.
Mm-hmm.
I think that resonates with a lot of people. He's 6 years older. So after the top 40 radio station stuff, my brother in college, I raided his CD collection and found some new stuff that I hadn't heard anywhere else.
Do you remember, like, you're talking about your dad and the cassettes, which is, I love that, because I can almost hear the sound of like the cassette going in, like, if you think about it, like it kind of like you push in the click, like all that. What kind of car was your dad driving? Like, can you remember all of that?
There was a Chevette,
mm-hmm.
a Pinto.
Nice.
These are very high-end quality vehicles. And then a truck. I used to get in the window. I would make him wind down the window so I could get in, like the Dukes of Hazzard. I'm dating myself here. But yeah.
That's awesome. I'm just thinking, like, because first of all, I'm thinking the last name Italian, Billy Joel, Pinto. I'm thinking like the Piano Man. Like, I'm assuming, and like I don't really want you to describe your dad, because what I have in my head is like this grizzly, like Italian, like, taking it very serious, singing Piano Man at the top of his lungs, like preaching about how amazing Billy Joel is as he's singing it down the road and you're sitting in the passenger seat.
Absolutely. Dead on. And amazingly enough, if we could work in full circle, right before the pandemic, I took my mother to see Billy Joel for the first time at Madison Square Garden. So that was my last concert before pandemic.
Really? Oh, yeah. We are going full circle. It's interesting, with Billy Joel, it's like some people, like Billy Joel is like Springsteen to most people. Like especially if you're on Long Island, like the island, like Long Island, like Billy Joel is like king. And then it's like it's like Springsteen's for other people. But it's interesting, like how high of a throne Billy is, like out in like the Northeast of things.
Oh yeah. I've been to Allentown on a work trip, and I was just like, this is a spiritual event right now.
God, yeah, he's it's interesting character. So, what was your first band that you called your own? Because I think we all grew up, and like you were saying, like your brother had his music, your dad had his music, but I think there's always a time when we start listening to music, and it's like, this is mine. Like, I found this. This is like my band.
Well, okay, so I found it. It's a little different. And it's probably where like live music so much. I was a big 90s girl, Juliana Hatfield. So I was in early Juliana Hatfield. Finally got to see her. She was coming to Metropole in Pittsburgh. And even though I went to see her, Jeff Buckley opened for her.
Oh.
And it was the first time I had heard him. I didn't own any of the music.
Wow.
And my friends and I left, bought Grace. We're just listening constantly. And then sadly, MTV News a few months later, where he drowned. And it was like, okay, anytime I have the chance to go see someone, I'm going to go see them.
It is you're preaching to the choir. We've talked about this before. How about like regrets of like not like thinking you're going to see somebody and then you're like, I'll see him later. And if Brad's listening, I'm guaranteeing you he's laughing right now because the story comes up all the time. It's like, I had tickets to see Bowie and 9 Inch Nails at Madison Square Garden. And I was dating a girl and she's like, you'll see him another time. You can't go. And I didn't go and I never got to see Bowie. And it kills me because I adore Bowie. So, and it's like you said, like Jeff Buckley, even Elliott Smith, these musicians that were like they're amazing in their own sense, but missing out on seeing them is tough because I mean, music, these musicians, I mean, sometimes even if like a one-hit wonder, like they tour for a little bit, they'll never tour again. So it's if there's something you need to see, then if you have the opportunity to see it, you see it.
Absolutely. Like Pearl Jam and Lollapalooza, Chicago. I really want to see Amy Winehouse. So you make that decision. Either I stay up close or I go see the other stages. And I'm never going to regret that.
How was Amy Winehouse live?
I thought it was fun. I really liked her. She covered like Cupid and had that throwback style. And we talked about my oldie station listening, so I like that throwback.
Yeah,
I thought she was good live.
She has this, she has this hauntingly beautiful voice that resonated with her music. That I thought she was a great performer too. I've seen a lot of her live stuff. No, that was another person I never got an opportunity to see. There's, it's the conversation at my wife today. My wife's like, because we were talking about Jack White announced his tour dates today. And I'm like, oh, well, hell, I mean, we're still going to be in Virginia when he's playing in Virginia, like the 23rd of April, playing in Portsmouth, which where that is. And then the 29th of August, he's ending the tour in Kansas City. I said, we literally could see that too. And she's like, is there anybody you haven't seen that you really want to see? And it made me stop and think. And I'm like, I think there's only 3 artists right now that I haven't seen live that like I need to make sure I take the time to see. One is Depeche Mode. Depeche Mode is like high on my list of people I really want to see. Arcade Fire, for some reason, every time they play close by, like I disappear somewhere like for work or just life. And then the other one, oh God, now it's slipping my mind. It'll come back to me. Anyway, but we were talking about like just bands, and she's, my wife's not a big music person, so she doesn't like get it, but I can't agree with you more about like, if you have the opportunity to see somebody, jump on it because you just never know.
Yeah. There are definitely some that I've missed out on, Petty, I'm sad about. Mm-hmm. Beastie Boys together with MCA. Like a lot of my friends have gone to see it and definitely have some regrets there.
Well, we can't see everything. We hope to see as much as we can. Well, now, so that was your first love. That's how you fell into music. When did you find out, or when did you learn about the band Pearl Jam?
Probably from my brother and radio, Jeremy on MTV. So that's when I found out about it. And I think that was a very, that age is just very formative. So I've talked to some other people, and maybe this is a girl thing, but I went from New Kids to Pearl Jam. I like to say that's my They were my new boy band.
That is a big dynamic to change from. It's not like I went to Boys to Men. I went from New Kids on the Block to Boys to Men. And then from Boys to Men, you went right from New Kids on the Block. You said, Joey, you're done. I'm going for Eddie.
Joey was my favorite.
See, look, I have this psychic ability of reading people and finding out who they loved on New Kids on the Block.
But it's just that dynamic shift. Mm-hmm. You get into the teen years, and it's all of a sudden it's just different. You don't want to like what everyone else is doing. You want to be your own person. And music helped me do that. Even though I was still at that point listening to the radio songs. I kind of make fun of myself a bit because it's like I didn't listen to Porch and Garden. That side, I would just get to the other side and let me hear the even flow, the alive. What are they playing on the radio? And now it's like, what were you doing? So for me, Versus, that's the first CD I bought with my own money and listened album in a row. Didn't skip any songs. And I'm very big on listening to the album in order. Now with Spotify, everything, you can get a single, just skip the songs. I think that's why I love vinyl so much. You put it on, you let it play. I heard at a concert, he said, the album is the journey, an EP is a field trip, a single's a night out, go on the journey. Listen to the whole thing in order as it was meant to be.
Yeah, there was an interview recently with Roger Waters, and they were talking about why he thought The Wall never worked the way that people wanted it to work, and that it was meant to be almost like this production. Like, it should have been one song, that everything flowed together. And he didn't like the fact that like the record labels were forcing his hand to play like, oh, we're going to do, whatever, name a song off of that was a hit. Like, we're going to have this as a single. That's, that's going to be where we're going to push on the radio. And he didn't like that because he really wanted it to be taking as like, hey, we want people to listen to it as the experience. It's a story being told. So like if you listen to Run Like Hell, you're like, well, where does this fit? But if you actually listen to Run Like Hell in the actual sense of the album, there's a part of it that makes it's a story. So no, I've always appreciated like the idea of like the album and it coming together and stuff like that. And for me, like when Gigaton came out, which could, even like the new My Morning Jacket this year, I'll always get the album and it's like the new Band of Horses, for instance. It comes out in February, but they have a couple singles. And I'm like, I don't want to hear the single almost, because I almost want to hear how that fits into the artist's idea or the representation of what their art is in that album, because there is a lot of time and effort that they're putting into being like, that's song 6, this is song 7, and where it fits in. So I'll always like to put like my headphones on, like, and I have a really good pair of headphones, and I want to listen to it from beginning to end a couple of times, and then maybe later on if I'm in the, then you start pulling and stuff. But no, I mean, I think Gigaton's a great example of like, there's some songs on there that if you just played without hearing the entire album, I don't know if you'd fall in love with it nearly as much as you would as it being a part of the album.
Right. I think for me, Avocado was kind of that way too, where I just feel like the flow of it and the way it goes, that one really sticks with me too. And where I am at that time. I think certain albums resonate with whatever I'm going through in my life, and it's just meant to be heard this way. Or there are certain albums that I'll go back to depending on how I'm feeling. I think the same, certain movies too. You're just in the mood for that. I'm just in the mood for that album. I'm in the mood for that movie. Those kind of things.
Yeah, no, it's kind of like, I think you just said something that made me think. It's like sometimes, there's a 3-part movie, right? Or like Kill Bill, like there's part 1 and there's part 2. It's meant to be watched part 1 first and then part 2, because if you watch part 2 and then go back to part 1, it kind of ruins it for you. It's got to be watched in order. So No, I get it. It is interesting, that whole dynamic. Talking about movies and having that poster behind you, have you watched the Beatles documentary?
I have not watched part 3 yet.
I haven't either. I've only watched part 1 and 2.
1 and 2.
Yes.
And that is also a journey. I am so mixed with emotions.
Yeah.
Because it's amazing. First of all, thank you, Peter Jackson. And where is this then? How's there still new stuff that we've never seen before, just uncovered of you going through this entire experience? So yeah, the Beatles are very close to my heart. I think that's the other place I fell in love with music in my basement, which sounds weird. But there was a record player for my family and just vinyl throughout the years. And Meet the Beatles was one of them. And I just discovered all these songs that they don't play on the radio that were just amazing. And then, 8th grade or so, it was all about the Beatles for me.
You made an interesting comment, which brought me back thinking about something. You said something about where was this stuff? How long has this been out there for, this information? London Bridge Studios in Seattle, where 10 was recorded. I toured it a couple of years ago, and Eric Lilvois, who was touring it, was talking about the shed that was a part of the that was outside in the parking lot. And I could be saying part of the story wrong, but bear with me. I know the concept of it. It was like they didn't even know that they owned the shed. And then it was like the property manager's like, hey, I think you have a leak in your roof. And like, what do you mean? This shed? And like, yeah, you have to go. So they were going through the shed, and they ended up finding original recordings from I think it was like Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, all these things out there that they were just sitting there for years. They ended up giving back to the properties of each organization, all of the bands and stuff. But it's just like watching this documentary made me think of it's almost like you're a fly on the wall, right? It also makes, I think my perception of certain things I thought about the Beatles has changed. I don't look at Yoko Ono the way I did before. I don't think of her as the villain that she's been portrayed for millions of years, the way she is in this documentary. And it was interesting how little, and I'm only in part 2. I haven't watched part 3 yet, like yourself, but up to this point, how they looked down on George Harrison, because when he was playing I Am Mine, I thought Paul McCartney and John Lennon was kind of shaking it off for a while, and it wasn't until all right, well, let's give it a try now. But it was like they almost looked past him so many times, and I think that's the dynamic is interesting. It was amazing, but then it also made me think. I would have loved if there was any album Pearl Jam had recorded and we could have been a fly on the wall for. Could you imagine if we were able to see what Vitology was like? What they thought and the process behind it, and the shift of the band and how that almost broke them up. Vitology, I would have loved to see this for the band for Vitology.
But would you really? I mean, watching this documentary. So it's hard for me because George is my favorite. Mm-hmm. So yes, I am very much empathizing throughout that, and I don't want to spoil anything for anyone who hasn't watched it, but part 2 was just devastating for me.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I would want to see. I want to see them live and on stage, and I purposefully don't wait till after or go up. I've been to the Tractor Tavern when Mike's there, and I don't want to shatter the illusion or find out the creative process sometimes.
Interesting. Okay.
Because it might be too much.
Okay, I can see that. It is, there is the positive and negative side of that. The positive is, when they were talking to Robert Plant about Stairway to Heaven, and he was on Stern, and Stern was talking to him, and he's like, how did you, write the song? And he's like, how many years did it take you to write that song? He goes, oh no, he goes, I was, sitting in the basement, and we were talking, came up with it in 5 minutes, and we recorded it. I'm like, you came up with it in 5 minutes? Stairway to Heaven took you 5 minutes? I can barely clean a room in 5 minutes, but one of the greatest songs of all time, you took you 5 minutes to, and it's just. But then I also like the idea of Dave Grohl was on I forgot what it was recently, and he was talking about his book, which I can't recommend enough. and they're talking about the process, and he was talking about the song Everlong, or whatever. There goes my hair. And he was talking about the process it took, and like how the whole idea of like he had the music and then he was humming the melody, and then he like how he broke it down, and it took weeks for him. And that to me shows like the creative like genius of people and how it takes to like pull things out of them. So it is interesting to see that. But no, I do, so yeah, no, I want to see, I'd love to pull back the layers, and I'd love to see how this band thinks, because this, for instance, like Gigaton, the band members did many interviews where they talked about the process. Like, Dance to the Clairvoyance, they talked about how, Stone was goofing on bass, and then, Matt's like, hey, let me see. And the next thing you know, it just was that process of how a goofy thing turned into a song, is interesting to me. Like, but I mean, it'd been really cool to like see like video of like maybe Stone just picking up a bass and like messing with it. And then the next thing you know, you see the process, because I think the crazy thing about Get Back was these songs that we've been hearing our entire life, right? Because these albums are older than us, right? These albums came out way before we were born. We've listened
way before, long eons.
Oh, come on. I don't ask women their age, but I'm assuming we're pretty close in age. So, and I'm 36, so we'll leave it as is. But Get Back, right? They're breaking down these songs, and you're seeing the creative process of songs like Get Back, or
When Paul's at the piano and Let It Be is just like, oh, I was playing around with this one. It's like that amount of genius. I like seeing that. But for instance, I wouldn't want to see like the George stuff, the dynamic there. That is rough for me. I'm also an empath, so maybe that's part of it. But like Rumors, Fleetwood Mac, I would not want to see that process. Even though love the album,
yes,
love the outcome,
yes,
but I wouldn't want to, microscope into all that.
Yeah, that I can see being a drug-filled, just cluster F from the get-go. Yeah, no, I understand. But no, it is interesting. But yeah, it was, I can see Paul McCartney in Charlottesville. I'm not sure if you saw McCartney in Charlottesville as well.
I have not seen McCartney.
Really? That is, I would recommend highly seeing him, because I went to it as like, it's a Beatle, kind of like when I saw Ringo Starr. I'm like, it's a Beatle. I would just want to be able to say that I saw a Beatle. And Ringo Starr was exactly what I thought Ringo Starr was going to be. It was, a show that was glorifying Ringo, this extremely talented band, and him just kind of filling in and singing, and a lot of echoes and things to kind of help his voice out a little bit. But it was fun. It was interesting. It was definitely worth the price of admission. But the Paul McCartney one, I went with low expectations. He played for 3 hours and 15 minutes. The stage show was amazing. He played 34 songs. And he was just, now the only thing about Paul McCartney, and it's kind of like, I'm a big Nine Inch Nails fan too, is that every show is the exact same set list. So it's not something you can go to a multitude of times. It's definitely something that once you see it once, unless you loved it, because I mean, hey, we watch movies multiple times and we love those. It's not different. It's the same thing. And I did that when Nine Inch Nails did their I think it was 2008 when they played like Charlottesville. And I'm like, well, this was amazing. I need to see the next 3 shows. And I bought tickets to the next 3 shows, and it was verbatim, word for word. Trent said the same things, smashed the piano at the exact same moment, and it was just like, I was like, I get it, but then it's just like it takes the fun away from it too. So
right. Yeah, I went to see Rush when they did their moving pictures, and same thing. It was amazing. I'm so glad I went, especially now with Neil Peart. But I knew that if I went to any other city, that was going to be the show.
Yeah, and it's just a tough pill to swallow, because it's like, God, can you change 2 songs? Can you give me 2 different songs? I mean, you guys have been doing this a long time, just 2 different songs. But no, it is interesting. And I think that's also, as fans of Pearl Jam, and why we go to shows so many times, or, it's because everything is different. The feeling's different. And, sometimes they change the set list for like how the venue's set up, how it looks, the city they're in, whether it's by an ocean, whether it's in the middle of the country. It's always different because it's, I think one of the funniest conversations I always have is like, okay, the show is on the beach. They're gonna play oceans. It's just got to happen. It's on oceans. Or you'll go to like, I'm trying to think of another song that would actually work for this, but it's like, or it's the first show of the tour. They haven't played in a long time. They have to open up with Release or A Long Road. Like you try to break it down, but then they come out and they do something you have no idea or expecting. But I think that's what makes it special.
Absolutely. I will say one of my favorite shows was Oslo because, Strangest Tribe was a big moment for sure. But just some of the little like throwaway elements for other people that you blink and you miss it. I'm a Beatles fan. Like we're in Oslo. Ed just between songs randomly throws out some Norwegian Wood, and Rubber Soul's my favorite album, and it's like, yes, Strangest Tribe debuts live, but that's my favorite moment from that show.
Well, I think that's what's cool about it too, is that like, I think, when I talk to people, they tell me about like some of their favorite moments. Like, what's your favorite moment or why you do these things is completely different than everyone else. But it also, I can resonate with that, like what it means and how that affects you. And I think that's what's cool about this band, because I don't really think that there is a lot of bands out there that can do the pull power that Pearl Jam does when it comes to a live show experience, the way they do it, the community based around it, and how it affects people in different ways. I can't tell you, and I'm pretty sure I'm not trying to speak for you, but I think, during the pandemic, how many times on those days you're most stressed, it was easy to just press play and listen to Pearl Jam and just remove yourself from the world to de-stress for a little bit, because at that moment you're listening to that music, and then it could bring you back to that moment of hearing Strangest Tribe for the first time, or, hearing these things, and then it gives you happy moments. It's kind of like we had talked about, off air. We were talking about, our love for posters and collecting. And one thing I always talk about is like, the reason I have 141 prints framed in my basement is because I can go to those and I can be like, oh God, like right now I'm looking at Eddie Vedder Beacon Night 1. I'm looking across and I'm like, oh man, I remember going to that show and meeting Eddie Vedder and and all these pieces coming together. And then I can look to my right and I'm like, oh, Yield Walkie. Like I remember that, like how surprising that was. And like, so these things that can remove us from the moments we're in now to put us in happier moments. I don't know of any other band that does it for me besides, Pearl Jam.
Absolutely. And I think, pandemic definitely, especially my job is 80% travel. I'm used to being on the road. So a few things shifted for me in pandemic. I got to know my house. So I was like, oh, this is what it's like. Not just a place to hold my stuff. But I'm a very visual person. So as much as I love music, all the photos on my Google Nest hub are like all tour stuff, all the people that I went places with. And I think that's a big element of it too. It is really an experience. You get to go on vacation with all your best friends and get to see shows for 2 weeks, 3 weeks in these amazing, beautiful places. And everyone's experiencing that sense of community, and it's different every night. And that energy, for different people, I think different shows just speak to you in a certain way.
Sure.
The visual representation, the posters that I have up all over my house these are like my Horcruxes. These are the pieces of my soul that people would need to find and destroy to get rid of me. But, I've got the Mongo in Pittsburgh. That's my hometown. My first footsteps. My favorite sound. I love the Pirates. Jason Grilly. You know, there's a lot of pieces of that, even though it's a beautiful poster. That just I experienced that all over again. Eddie Solo, Wembley. You know, I got to see the Who in Wembley. That's crazy. It starts to rain when Rain Over Me plays towards the end. I get a Pete Townsend pick on my way out. That's just on the floor. It's just like that experience. I'll never capture that again. But those shows, for me, I'm always overthinking, or what did I do in the past? What should I change it? A show is the only place where I truly feel like I can be present and fully experiencing everything in that moment right there. I can't capture that in a lot of other aspects of my life.
Wow. I think you just described exactly how a lot of us feel when we go to shows. And I think it's a great representation, because I think, you know, and I've said this before, but like, I don't have a lot of local friends because they don't understand what you just said. What you just said was a great picture painted of why we do what we do when we go to shows, and why we tour, and why we do these things. Because, you know, we all have regular lives with jobs, wives, kids, all those things, or husbands or exes, whatever. We have all these different things. But, you know, there's a part of us that is untapped a lot of times, that we can just be who we are at these shows and be around people that are like-minded. And for the 3 hours, or even the entire day, depending if you go to, like, you know, before things and after things with friends, it really helps build who we are and let a piece of us out that we don't get to do all the time. And I think that's why the lead up to tours is the biggest energy builder. And then the end of a tour is the saddest time. It's like when you know it's the last show you're going to see for a while, and then Mike starts playing like Rocking the Free World or Yellow Ledbetter. You like, or when the house, you know what? I take it back. When the house lights come up, you're like, oh, just shut them off. Just shut them off. Please, just shut them off.
Keely, no. Keely, don't do it.
Turn that off in the back. It is kind of a letdown, because then you're going back to this space in your life where you sometimes you're not understood, and you are back into this overthinking part of life that, you know, you just wish people would understand you a little better.
Yeah, the post-tour depression is very, very real.
Yeah, it is. It's brutal. And, you know, for a while I just went and saw Pearl Jam, and that was it. It was like there were 6 years of my life that the only bands I went and saw was Pearl Jam. And then it was like, you know, I have to see other music. And then I started, you know, sprinkling in like My Morning Jacket, Band of Horses, and I went back to start seeing Springsteen a little bit more, and then I started seeing other things, and then I started getting into like local music, just because it was like, and then I started realizing that like sometimes it's just being around music, you know, and listening to things and not having anything else around, and not playing on your phone, and just enjoying the moment and like the environment you're in, and kind of clearing your head. Like, I think that's the greatest thing for mental health that you can possibly have, of just being in a space that is, you know, kind of free of like, you know, clutter, you know, and what I mean clutter, like, you know, family or friends or whatever that is like, that nags and doesn't understand you, but being in a space where you can just listen to music, absorb it, and then just kind of let go. It's the greatest thing in the world. An experience, and like I said, I don't know how much of these shows you've ever listened to, but one experience that I've always explained to people is, I think the greatest thing that can happen to a Pearl Jam fan is if they haven't seen Pearl Jam in a long time and they go to their first show and the first song they sing is Release. And if you see it at the right time and you're singing it with the crowd, and the example I'll give you is in 2018, Night 1 Release in Fenway Park. That was the first show I'd seen in a while. And that I remember me and a bunch of people around me tears in her eyes, singing that, because it's almost like, I feel like that song is a great example of letting go. And, you know, when you're singing Release Me, just kind of de-stressing for a little bit of your problems around your world, your life, and just enjoying that moment with people around you that are probably going through just as many problems, but are in that moment with you.
Absolutely. And I definitely agree. Releases that song. I've got a couple Pearl Jam tattoos, and I'll Ride the Wave Where It Takes Me is definitely one of them. That one always gets me in that place. I'd say there are a few that you just experience that, and it is full community. Everybody just has that same energy, and you feel it. It's different. You get chills. You get just that a different type of experience that only the people who've gone through it can really describe. And whether it's your first show or your 200th show, it still comes back there every time.
You know, it's interesting too, because it's sometimes, and this never happened to me until the most recent show I went to. I don't know if this ever happened to you, but I've heard present tense tons of times, like a ton of times. But hearing it at See Here Now Festival, like in the midst of like the ending of a pandemic, beginning, however you want to say it, but in the midst of like all of this going on, like I was there with really good friends, and we were all just like, I think you felt like that song hit us in a way that never hit us that way, and that was just another emotional moment. And that was probably the moment of that show for me too. But like that song I've heard a bunch of times, and I've just sang it, and it was a great song to sing, but that time it hit me in a way that was different than I ever had before. And it was interesting because it's like, now I listen to that song different than I've ever listened to it before.
I've absolutely had that happen, and with President, actually, but an Eddie solo show, where it definitely just, okay, I've heard this thousands of times, but today I'm hearing it different.
Mm-hmm.
Why Go did that for me, and kind of transformed live. Years later, just randomly, I heard it differently. I'm Thought Known, a few songs like that. So I definitely get what you're saying.
Yeah, it is interesting how the songs can change, for us as we get older at different points of our lives, and how it reflects at that moment. It is interesting how, especially how we can create ideas of what the song means to us, and it could mean something totally different. And I think that's why Eddie said he doesn't like to even tell anybody what the songs are about anymore, because sometimes that song for us, what it means to us, is more powerful than what the actual song is about.
I think the first 5 times I heard Sirens live, couldn't listen without crying. Like that one. And now it's like, okay, it's Sirens. But for those first few times, it was like, okay, where I'm at with my life and my son and just my family, like that one hits pretty strong.
No, I hear you. So, talking about seeing Pearl Jam live, which we've been talking about for a few minutes now, when was the first time that you actually had the opportunity to see Pearl Jam?
So I didn't see them live till, late comparatively to a lot of fans. It was Asheville Vote for Change tour. So it was at 2003, 2004.
Okay. Now, was that the first time you saw them that you like, was that the show that changed your mind about seeing them more times, or was that something you've always had in your head, like, I want to see them as many times as possible?
No, so I didn't understand.
Okay.
I liked Pearl Jam early on in my teen years. Versus was great, and I continued with them. I just hadn't seen them live for whatever reason, and I didn't realize that it's still going on.
Okay.
So a friend was like, "Oh yeah, it's a thing. It's coming to North Carolina. You want to go?" And I went, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, let's do this." And every year, it's like, okay, I saw that one. That was the only one on that tour. And then I think the next year, maybe it was Canadian. I saw Kitchener in London. So I just progressively kept adding on and adding on. And then I think like 2013, 2014, it was just like, yeah, let's go to all of these. Like I said, I traveled for work.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was going to see retailers, national territories. So it was like, I scheduled my own visits. So work, trip, Turk.
Wow, that is the prime. The only other thing I can think of that's more perfect than that is if like you were an airline, like worked for the airlines, and were just able to be like, hey, listen, I need to go here, here, and here, and just work the airlines, and then paid for nothing. But no, I mean, to be able to pull all those shows in 2013, first of all, was I think it's a very overlooked tour. I think 2013 was an amazing tour for Pearl Jam, was able to accomplish at so many places. But no, that's impressive that you did so much. Now, when you think back to your shows, is there anything that really sticks out in your mind of, wow, I'm really lucky to have been here for these moments?
Third Man.
Wait, you went to Third Man?
Yeah.
With like 60 people?
Yeah.
Wow.
I saw the tweet that was like, hey, 10 Club members, Grimies in the morning, something special. And when you see something special. And Grimies for Bonnaroo a few years I think like Metallica when they did Bonnaroo or something, they did like a secret show. So I was like, so I drove from Virginia, waited outside in the morning. And there was another guy in line, like a local guy that just kind of showed up a few hours later. It's like, what do you think it's going to be? Like maybe a sticker? I was like, if it's a sticker, I will lose my freaking mind.
Could you imagine? Like, first of all, amazing that you went out there. But I can only imagine you're driving out there, and I'm thinking that you're driving in your car. First of all, I'm thinking you're driving in the Pinto. By the way, this Pinto, you will always forever be like, I'm just imagining you in this Pinto. But you're driving in a Pinto to Tennessee to Grimes. You get there, and they're like, well, thank you so much for driving that 7.5? What, 7.5, 8 hours?
Well, I mean, you gain an hour, but
yeah,
I think it was about 6.5.
Yeah, so you get there, and thank you for coming. Here is this highly collectible Pearl Jam sticker.
Yeah. Tim Bierman's handing out stickers. Like, hey, here you go. Just for you. That's the equivalent to like drink your Ovaltine.
Oh my God, yeah. Oh, we get the ring. He's in the bathroom. Here we go. Pearl Jam sticker. What the? But no. So God, that's pretty special. I know, and you know, it's funny. I know 2 other people that went to that show. That was a good one. So, when did you find out it was an actual concert?
When they give you the poster, they were like, you'll get an email with special information. At that point, I was like, all right, definitely a show.
It was it the same day or was it the next day?
It was that night.
Wow. And they did
Of the Earth was the best part of that. Jack White doing solo. Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, no, that's another Pearl Jam song. Well, first of all, I hope they never. I can't imagine that will ever sound correct in a studio. I feel like that is a song that was built around the idea of being played live.
Yeah.
But that's such an amazing song, and Jack White is, God, he's just so damn talented.
Absolutely. I mean, we talked earlier, but like the Racking Tours have done some travel there. It's just he's all over the place, and the creativity is just really exciting.
It is. He's another person. So that's one person I got lucky on because the White Stripes were touring, and there was like rumors of the demise, and I was like, you know what, I have to see this band, and I was lucky I did because then it was like 6 weeks later, Meg's like, I'm done.
Yeah.
So that was a highlight. I saw them in Northern Virginia, GMU.
Okay.
So and another one was Oasis. Oasis, it was Ryan Adams opened up from Oasis, and Oasis was talking about leaving. That was their last show in America. They left, and then as soon as they left, like the next day, the news came out that Oasis was announcing their last 5 shows in England, And then that was it. They were over. I'm like, well, thank God I got to see this, because it'd been one of those things like, you know, just more regrets of living it out. How special was it seeing them in such a small space?
I mean, it was the stuff of like you never think that's going to happen at this point. You know, I definitely envy the folks that got to see them early on, unknown, the small venues. But you never think at this point you're going to see Pearl Jam at that point in a small venue. And it was like, I was right against the stage. You get the photo book with all the pictures. I'm not in any of the pictures because the camera is right here on my shoulder taking them. You weren't allowed to take photos. So we found a loophole, and we did ask the photographer, who's the only person allowed to take photos, to take a picture of us with our cell phone. So he did take that. But not any of the photos because you're that close.
Oh, man. That sucks.
I think it was weird for the band. Like, Ed seemed awkward because they haven't been in that type of venue in so long, and they're used to big stadiums and big arenas at this point. So I think it was a little, I don't know, he seemed a little vulnerable almost.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I guess you're right on that, because, I mean, even the smaller stages they would play would be his, you know, solo shows, but even the solo shows are in bigger, like little arena, like, you know, like the Tower Theater in Philly, theaters and stuff. That's what I was looking for. It is interesting. I guess not having that space and me feel more crowded might do it for you.
Yeah.
Interesting. That is an interesting question and topic. So what was the last time you had an opportunity to see the band?
Oh gosh. Stadium show, I think. So I had tickets to the festivals. But with pandemic, we talked a lot. You know, I hadn't been around people a while, and I just felt like, what if it's not the same? Back to my overthinking. It's just such a special place that I hold so dear that I'm worried to put myself back in there, and what if it's not the same? What if something's changed, or I've changed, or I'm just not ready yet?
No, listen, hey, and I appreciate the honesty behind that, because, you know, it's not for everyone right now. I will tell you though, I don't know. First of all, I knew before seeing them at See Her Now Festival, I wasn't a festival person. I just don't like festivals. Because, you know, I like being around like-minded people. I think we talked about that before, about, like, you know, that everything's the same. Then when you go to them, and then it's, you know, you're dealing with people that are there for other bands, and there was a couple of bands before them, like the I think it's the Allman Brothers, not the Allman Brothers, the Avett Brothers.
Avett Brothers, yeah.
Yeah, and I just couldn't get into them. Like, it was kind of like when I saw Pearl Jam at Made in America Festival, and Drake was the band before them. And it was like, I had the hardest time just sitting there listening I'm like, this is not my cup of tea. Like, I can't get into this. It was just, it's hard.
I'm with you. I think I've been to a lot of festivals, and they've been hit or miss. I remember, was it Buenos Aires? That was like a festival show that was not a festival. Like that seemed like a Pearl Jam concert. That one was special. But I did the Made in America, Midtown, I think in Atlanta, and then the Pensacola.
Yeah, in Florida. Yep.
Yeah. So the three festivals there. I know exactly what you're talking about with Made in America. I was like, I've heard good things about Drake. This should be interesting. I'd like to see him live. And I was like, this is awful.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
Because that stage, it was, because Run DMC was on at one point. That was fun.
I did enjoy Run DMC.
That was really fun.
And I think Florence and the Machine was during those festivals too, I believe.
Yeah, that was, I thought that was the day before.
It may have been, but she was at some festivals along with Pearl Jam, and I was like, okay.
But like
that was good.
Yeah, I only went to the one day for Pearl Jam, but like I remember the Hives were there. That was a lot of fun. They played on the smaller stage.
I like the Hives.
Yeah, the Hives, and that was fun because I'll never forget. He's like, I am not going to continue playing until everyone sits on the ground. And then he had everyone jump up, and that was a lot of fun. Gary Clark Jr., that was the first time I ever heard of him, and that's right before he got popular, and that was amazing. But then they had a female rapper that was just like, and this was my son's first show when he was 5, and she started singing about her female area in a song that was extremely explicit, and I was like, this is just not where I want to be right now. Right. But it was, and it was, I don't know, I wasn't a big fan of the festival. I remember just like I walked in, they didn't even check my backpack. Like they're like, come on in. I'm like, that scares me. Like, so yeah, Made in America wasn't my big thing. I mean, See Her Now Festival was much more enjoyable. But then this was the first show that made me realize how old I was and compared to the people that were there. Because the entire time I was there was 2 bands I wanted to see before Pearl Jam, and that was Rainwolf and Jackson Pines. And I've seen Rainwolf a bunch, and I love them. And then there's one kid that was next to me, and I was with a friend of mine, Rhiannon, and they're like, you got to see this band Goose. You got to see this band Goose. They're amazing. The next big thing. They're like they're an American band. They're phenomenal. I'm like, you know what? Let me see what all the hype's about. So we go to the secondary main stage. We're there. Yeah. I ain't shitting you when I say there is a ton of people, thousands of people flocking for this band that are like on cloud 9, just like you and me would be waiting for Pearl Jam hit stage. They come out and they start playing, and I'm like, all right, the guitarist is playing really well. And it's funny. I'll have to send you a link because there's a live stream of this. The first thing they start doing, they're like, hey, everyone, welcome, blah, blah, blah. Very friendly. Every single one of them is clean shaven except this extremely thick mustache. I don't think any of them have been 21 longer than 6 days. And they start their jam band, but then they start singing Christmas songs. And then the next thing you know, they're playing this other song, I looked over. And I'm watching these people, and this is the best people watching I've done in a long time. And they are into it. Like, they are so into this, and they're jumping up, they're dancing, they're all hugging. I looked right over to my friend Rhiannon, and I said, I can't get the fuck out of here fast enough. Like, this is the worst thing. And it's crazy because I one of the, with Touring Fan Live, we support a lot of, artists and post artists. And so we have a lot of connections with them. And a lot of them are doing Goose posters. Like they're actually like making posters for this band that are like selling out like double, like the crazy amount. And they're like, yeah, their fan base is hardcore. And I'm like, I just don't get it. Like you almost have to listen to it to understand what I'm saying, but it is.
I'm gonna find it afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, listen, Drake was bad, right? And and it's just because it's a different kind of music. Goose is supposed to be this new rock and roll, and I just don't get it.
I completely understand where you're at. So you have kids. I have kids. You'll understand this. So my son, he's 19 now, but I was waiting for the teenage years for him to just find music and for it to be to him what it was to me.
Okay.
But his thing was always sports. I guess he's a bit of a late bloomer because 2 years ago or so, he really got into music. A lot of rap.
Yep.
But I'm here for it. I want to understand what he's finding in it, just like I can share with him. Okay, this is, for us, I'm sure grunge for my parents was Travis Scott for me. So I'm trying to understand, and I'm listening. I have more Lil Uzi Vert, all the Lils. Are in my playlist.
Yeah, why are they all little? Like, what made them little? Like, everything's little.
I don't get it. But to understand, right? And there were some things I'm like, okay, yeah, this is okay. So he wanted to go to Made in America. And it was full circle. I made my way back there, but in a very different from my Pearl Jam Made in America carrot. But it was a proud parent moment for me because they just thought they were going to walk in and I was like, nope, I'm taking you in a friend for your birthday. Let me help you navigate this space. You've never been to a music festival in Philly, Made in America. So, parents teach their kids a lot of things, but it was like, all right, we're going to upgrade to VIP. We're going to go to this section. If you want to be on the rails for Travis Scott, you're here. Somebody's here always. You claim your space. You can't go see this person over there and this stage and this stage. You stay here. And he was on the rail for Travis Scott, and it's like biggest moment of his life. And I got to witness that. Granted, and it's different for everyone, but I got to see him feel that way that I feel, and that was good enough, even though it's very different.
Yeah. So I tried it differently than you, and it didn't work out for one. I have two kids. My son, who is the one that's an athlete, that's the reason we're moving. I brought him to he's seen Pearl Jam 7 times. He's seen My Morning Jacket twice. He's seen Jack White. He actually, quick funny story about Jack White. He actually invited Jack White. We met him afterwards and bumped into him. He invited Jack White to come back home with him to sleep in bed with him and my wife. It was the most embarrassing moment. It was have you ever been to the Pavilion in Charlottesville, that outdoor?
Yep.
Okay. So we parked on the back side of it where the street is, where you're not supposed to park. We got there early enough so my son can go to that kids museum in front of it.
Yeah.
So after the show, we were leaving, and I said, hey, it's my car. Well, you're not supposed to park back here. I said, well, I've been here all day. All right, just go. So I'm holding my son. My son was probably 5 at the time. And as we're leaving, I see Jack White to my left. I'm like, and I said, hey, great show, thank you. He goes, oh, and he looked at Brady. He goes, oh, you tired? And my son's like, yeah. And he goes, oh, I'm sorry, buddy. He goes, you gonna go home and go to bed? And he just pops up. And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go to bed. He goes, would you want to come home and go to sleep with me and my mommy? And I just, whoa. I was like, hey, well, thank you for the show. Got to go. I couldn't get the hell out of there quick enough. My Morning Jack, I brought him a bunch of shows. He has and then he didn't get into music. He started getting into rap because whatever. That's kind of what the thing. And I was like, listen, if you're gonna listen to rap, let me show you rap. So I was like, hey, you ever heard Notorious B.I.G.? Have you heard of Busta Rhymes? Have you heard Exhibit? Things that resonated in the 90s. But then recently, he's been like, let me listen to Pink Floyd. He's been really big into Floyd, which has been interesting. He's been getting like Floyd shirts. He's seen Kiss with me a bunch of times. I love Kiss. I just love the over the topness of Kiss. Hence the T-shirt. And he's into that, but he's really not he hasn't picked up to it. Now my daughter, who's 5, she wants to join School of Rock in Kansas City when we go out there. She's into Prince. She verbatim knows Pearl Jam words. She's into it. She loves music. She loves the idea of playing music. She's even got at the idea of making her own playlist on iTunes, on her iPad, to listen to it. And she listens to just about everything, but she is open to the idea of older music as well, which is interesting for her. Yeah. So, but no, it is interesting. My daughter's into this one singer. I don't know. The song's called "Good for You." I can't tell you who sings it, but.
It may be Olivia Rodrigo.
I think so. I think you're right. 3 weeks ago, I almost had there's moments in your life when your kid does something that it hits you. So jokingly, I put the song on we have the home pod for Apple, and it came on, and she ran into the room, and she sang the song, but the way she sang it was she was trying to sing it. Instead of just singing it to be good, she was literally trying to hit the notes. And I sat there as a dad and I was just I'm going to cry. I'm going to cry over this damn song because she's trying. And it's just this, this is what she loves. And so it's cool. So I definitely feel I have my artistic daughter who loves the music, and then my son who's into sports and stuff like that. So I got the, best of both worlds.
Yeah, I definitely tried to take my son to a couple shows when he was younger, and it was like, oh, okay. I remember I took him to Bristow, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
That was his first show. He's probably about 8 to 10, maybe. Okay. But we're there 2 minutes. He got a T-shirt, a soft pretzel, fresh squeezed lemonade. It's like, for him, it's like, oh, the circus or an amusement park or something. Where it's like, okay. And he's just sitting there watching, and it's like, and then we went to DC for R&DM.
Yep. Well, you were at you saw R&DM at DC?
Well, I think it was the Black Cat.
Yes. They played Black Cat, and they also played Rock and Roll Hotel. Was the two?
It was Black Cat, the one that we went to. And it was like, we were down in the bar part first, and he was like clinging, and I'm like, it's okay, you're fine. And we went up. And it was just like we walked right up to the stage. So we're against the stage. And randomly while they're setting up, like a roadie comes over and just pushes a bunch of stuff in front of my son. And it's like Jeff Ament guitar picks and a wristband and a bunch of stuff. Says nothing else and just walks away. And I'm like, that's awesome. And the lady next to us gave him the set list and was like, you're going to want to remember this. Like ripped off the stage and gave it to him.
I was there with my son.
This is getting a little creepy now.
Yeah. I'm going to have to look. I think I have a picture of you and your son.
What?
Yes, because there was we did a pre-party for that. We were collecting basketballs, but like afterwards we were taking pictures like around the show. Me and my son were all the way to the left. Where like Joseph Arthur was, like where he had his like, we're standing and stuff, but my son was like sitting on the stage, like his ass was on the stage. Like we've been to a lot of the same shows. This is this shows you how small of a damn world this is.
Yeah.
But well, listen. First of all, I've kept you 2 minutes longer than I promised I would, so I appreciate that. I will say that Brad knocked us out of the park. Your stories and your storytelling, and I also like the fact that you were able to describe the feeling that we all have and why we love touring in a way that I've been doing this kind of stuff for 3 years. I was never able to describe it. I think the way that you described it before was perfect, and that's going to be a sound clip I use going forward, because I think there's no other way of describing things the way you did about how we're able to express ourselves or be in that moment. And do things that that we can't normally do. So I appreciate that. But I do appreciate your time coming on the show and chatting with us for an hour and hearing all your stories and crazy enough, not living far away from me, and then also realizing that we've been to a lot of the same damn shows together. Interesting night for sure.
Absolutely.
Brittany, before I let you go, let me just do a little quick rundown for things. If you're listening right now, we are going to be doing, we have a couple of big announcements for the month. We have our next show is going to be next Saturday morning. Dan Mumford and Bailey Race are coming on. They are asking me to do a Spider-Man show. I know nothing about Spider-Man. I do watch movies, but they want to talk about art and the concept behind art and how their screen prints are created based off of art, and then they want to talk about the new Spider-Man movies. So this is going to be an interesting one. So our X Gets to Square show, that's about pop culture, music, and everything with Post Artist, will be about Spider-Man next Saturday morning at 11 a.m. because Dan Mumford is from England. So you can tune into that one. On the 21st, we're going to do Let's Talk Vinyl with Trey Bush from Walla Walla, Washington, from Sleight of Hand Cellars. This is going to be episode 17 of ours. And we're going to be talking about Pearl Jam Christmas songs, our top 5 favorite songs of all time. We're going to be drinking a bottle of the Magician wine from Walla Walla, Washington. So we'll be talking Pearl Jam, drinking wine, and doing that. And then on December 23rd, as it was announced a few days ago, we are going to be doing Jingle Jam. We have about 18 musicians who are going to be covering holiday music. I am going to announce a few right now. Richard Stuverud and Alex from R&DM. He'll be him and his son are going to be covering a Christmas song. Kathy Moore, Black Circle, Paul and the Tall Trees. We're going to have a couple of people in the community that are covering it as well, and then also some people from the Project Matters. So it's going to be an evening of listening to holiday music, but in the same sense too, we'll be collecting money through a website for No Child Sleeps Outside, an organization from Mary's Place out of Seattle that is using the money to get kids off the streets during the holiday season and give them a place to sleep, and also give them something for the holiday season, because the homeless population in Seattle battle for children is extremely high. So on the 23rd, we are going to be raising money for that organization to give these children who have no place to sleep somewhere to sleep. So check out for that. So all that information is on the touringfanlive.com and also on our Facebook page or Instagram and all that. But that's all my announcements. Britney, it was a pleasure having you on tonight. You hang tight. We're going to end the show, and then we'll hang this up after we go off live. But hang tight. Everyone else, thank you so much for watching. If you just tuned in and you want to listen to the whole thing, this will be on our podcast as of tomorrow, and it'll be on our YouTube channel as of tomorrow. Just search The Touring Fan Live. Don't forget to subscribe and like. And until next time, thank you for watching The Touring Fan or listening to The Touring Fan Live.